Okay. Okay. Today is Monday, July 15th, and it's a little past 8 o'clock, and we are at our policy committee meeting. We're just going to start with rolling through our agenda. We have the first read of our 800 policy review and the 341.1, which is the new literacy state mandate per Act 20 as we move forward there too as well. So, all right, if we just want to start with that, does that sound good?
Yep.
Okay. Nicole was unable to make it today, so she did notify me that something came up with work and was unable to make today's committee meeting. So, all right. So, 811, parental involvement.
Actually, you have a copy of this.
I gave you.
No, they're not in this one.
No, it would have been the one you picked up earlier. But here, I can give that to you. There you go. I'll just read it off.
All right.
So, okay, so this one is basically, general that we are inviting parents in, participation, and, we want them to be a member of our community.
Do we
Pretty
have,
boilerplate stuff.
have an existing policy?
We currently do not have an existing policy.
Adopted.
Yep.
So does this policy, what does it limit parents from doing? Anything?
No, it's basically just inviting them in. We want them to be partners with it. Basically, there are some, when we talk about the rights of parents, ultimately, those are through either, complaint policies, challenges, things like that too as well.
That's why there's nothing referenced in here
No.
to those policies.
Correct.
And there's no rules to this.
No rules for that. No. No, but there are, if you want me to reference all of the other, for instance, resources should be available, whether it's curricular resources, we can certainly bring those through in the reference to this too as well.
I think that'd be a good idea.
Oops.
Because the only cross-reference we have is obviously from 342.5, Title I programming. I'll bring in more.
All right. 341.5.
Yeah, just merely we do reference whatever policies might coordinate.
Might coordinate with some sort of parental involvement. You want that to include, like, if there is a challenge, curricular challenge, opportunity to review, all the way from human growth and development to supplemental materials to, obviously, later on, we're gonna be talking about a complaint policy.
Yeah, I mean, it says board staff and administration shall take active measures to involve parents in their child's education. But then there's a policy that describes how.
No,
Those
that would be
steps
about
would be
communicating. I mean, most of those come through day-to-day operations, whether it's communication, and again, lots of different opportunities for us to be able to do that.
Guess this is just a policy and kind of representation of what we believe in, how parents should be involved in the school.
About how we want them to be,
them
we want
to
them to be involved, we just want them to be involved.
Okay.
Right, nothing requires us to having one of those, it's basically just saying, hey, we want your parental involvement. As it is a strong partnership, we believe that the stronger the partnership of families, obviously their child possibly could be reflected in their achievement as well, and success here.
Okay.
I'll take a look at some cross-references and add some of those in there. Okay. All right. The next one is district use of social media. Basically, it just allows us, this is a new one, something that we've been already doing. Basically just allowing us to, highlighting that we are going to be using social media to help promote the school and things like that. We do have a social media person, and that would be Jim Binney, oversees all of that. He's our direct contact, so if people have information or things to share, we always share through Mr. Binney.
So Benny is the sole social media person, no one else
Correct.
has access?
No one else has, I don't have access to.
Access
Nope.
to our.
There's a social media, We have an email. Again, one of the things that we've highlighted with our staff last year is we wanted to continue to really push out a lot of positive things that are happening. So we have an email, actually, that Jim gets. It's separate. It's like a social media at Merton.K12 that we share out great things that are happening. But if I wanted to post something on social media, I ask Jim. Jim is our person who does all that and filters through that.
Do you think maybe that should be put in here, Jim's
Position.
and
was gonna say the same
he is the sole
Okay.
person that no one else has access to post?
Because I don't think it even says,
And the prior input of the Director of Technology. We establish one or more district official accounts. So it's myself with the input of director. Basically, I oversee it, but I ask Jim to do it. I mean, we can highlight it.
But you have no access to it.
I don't have access to it.
which means you don't really
Oversee it, because you can't see it.
You can't control anything. If a mistake is made, you can't fix it.
Correct, it would be my designee.
But if your designee makes an error, purposeful or not, you can't fix that error, advising that person to fix it themselves. So if anything malicious were to occur, it is social media, right?
Yep.
Once it's out, it's out, right?
Once it's out, it's out.
So
So I
of
think-
course, trust Jim 100%, but, you know, having one person access it, I don't think is the best.
Okay.
Right?
Mhm.
Something gets hacked, something happens, next thing you know, we got stuff on our social media that we do not want. So you want to back up.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of pages, I mean, I'll just give an example, the 411 page in Heartland, they have, you know, two of the moderators, but they actually have another person that's a moderator, just in case they get hacked, that this other person can get into it, clean it up.
Yeah.
And that actually has happened to both, I think, those moderators now.
Mhm.
So
Okay.
it's probably a good idea to have you,
Okay.
you know, somehow, and I know you're not a big social media person, but somehow be able to get on there.
Okay. Just access to it.
Access,
Okay.
access to it, you know, so, and
Okay.
then both your names on here, is who has access to it.
Okay. So who has access? I'll highlight the district administrator and director of tech. Okay. Okay.
So where does it say Director of Tech?
Right in the beginning.
The first one with express advance approval of the district administrator and the prior input of the director of technology.
So that leaves it open to, you can decide somebody else, or Jim can decide somebody else too?
I'll clean that up to have those two people have direct access to it.
Well, but it says, district administrator with input from Director of Technology may establish, right?
One or
Correct.
more.
You can approve
Yeah.
somebody else to establish social media, is what that says. You
May
or-
Through a
establish-
third-party social media.
I think it says may establish one or more district official accounts through a third party.
Correct.
That just basically highlights that we will be able to, this policy allows us to have a Instagram account, a Facebook account.
But it doesn't limit you two. Cause it's saying you guys can approve
Correct.
somebody else to create one too.
The advance approval of the district administrator and the prior input of so the approval of the district administrator and the input.
So the administration, which
So
is
you.
I'm the one who would
That
be able
approves
to
it.
only authorize, for instance, if somebody.
the creation of a page.
A creation of a page,
Okay.
correct. What I think what we were talking about was
Who
getting
administers
into
it.
who administers it,
Okay.
who oversees it, who has
Got it.
access to that.
Okay.
And that's something I'll put in there too as well.
Okay. So this is strictly district level use of social media.
Not
Not
student,
staff or
not staff or student.
Not staff or student. So in order for something to get on there, it has to go
you.
through,
Got it.
either in
Okay.
this policy now, it'll highlight the district administrator or the director of technology.
And then I think it references messaging in here somewhere, or communication.
That public communications should
Okay.
include, that's three.
'Cause that's another important piece. Two options. Account holder. Also comment on public posting, public reply. Alright, so we're saying that all of our posts on our social media should be post only.
Post only, no comments. We take those off, correct. Yep,
Turned off.
turned off,
Can't even-
turned off. Yep, correct. And that's the way it currently is now.
Okay.
Yep. You got it. Comment
It
only.
wasn't
No
that way,
comment.
but it is that way.
It is that way, right, well, obviously with every social media page, it's like, again, I don't do that, but I
Okay.
do believe it's a click where you can all of a sudden allow comments. We do not allow comments.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, all right, we'll make those in there. All right, legal notices. Basically, again, this is boilerplate stuff that states that we will be publishing all of our, required postings, board meetings, legal notices, open records notices, annual notices, all sorts of things we have to post.
So when it says newspaper,
That would
We are
be-
still required to post every, and it's very expensive.
And which is our newspaper?
The Waukesha
For Freeman?
Freeman.
Yeah, because the other.
they
ones
don't, do they do a print edition?
Yep,
They still do.
Really?
Yep,
Mhm.
they still do.
yep. So the way that works, just so you know, is obviously, we are required, we do not put in our, all the committee meetings. We're just required to do the monthly meeting, at least one monthly meeting. That goes in along with the minutes. And particularly, when we think about the minutes of late, when we've been adopting all the policies,
Super long.
super long, it is
Expensive.
super
It's
expensive.
like, what are we talking? What was the last one?
Probably $500.
Jeez.
Yeah, it is.
It's something
it is
nobody reads.
It's something nobody reads, correct. That is all accessible online.
Yeah.
Again, we are trying, when I say we, some legislative changes with that, saying, hey, we'll post them, we'll put them on, public places, on our
Yeah.
website.
Right.
They still are kind of going back to the people who do not have internet access, being able to access some of that stuff, so.
But we also post
Um,
on the school.
Correct,
Yep.
yep,
Right?
yep,
So,
Yep.
which, okay.
correct. Now, we don't post our minutes there. Now, it'd be
Yeah.
very simple if they said, hey,
I
I'd
get
rather
access to
do
that.
that instead of spend $500 a month or
Mhm.
whatever it is, to be able to do that too.
Okay.
But basically, this is all stuff that we're required to do,
Newspaper required no matter what, that's mandated.
Right now.
mandated, like, right now. Yep,
Okay.
can't change that as much as I want to.
Okay.
Okay, 831, it basically just highlights that we are nicotine, tobacco and nicotine free. The nicotine part obviously gets into the vaping. Again, obviously we have student and staff rules. This now is a community rule, so if we do see somebody, in particularly after hours, baseball games, softball games here on campus, we do address that. Unfortunately, that does come up periodically where people are like, well, this is a public park.
Mhm.
No, very sorry.
Right.
So, and we do work closely with MAA, because they're the ones who use that a lot. We also remind the chiefs too, as well, that we are tobacco-free as well as nicotine-free too as well. Okay. All right, next one is the weapons policy. Again, same thing, weapons are prohibited per state statute. Pretty straightforward there. And again, this is now kind of covering our entire population, because we do have student, obviously, in the staff
Okay.
there too as
Yeah,
well.
yeah,
Yep,
yeah.
that's already been approved in the 400s and 500s. And just as a reminder, conceal and carry is not allowed still on school grounds.
So it says a student possesses a firearm or destructive device. Well,
What's a
what's a destructive device?
Bomb.
Okay.
Bomb, any type of, bomb would probably be the best example, a firework.
Okay, some fireworks.
Fireworks
something
too.
simple as
Yep, exactly, something as simple as that.
that. Okay. Which makes sense,
Yep,
All right.
okay. All right, use of district equipment. Again, we did have a policy for this, and it just replaces Oh, no, 8,008, yep,
Yeah.
place is 8,008.
And do we have, something that tells people what equipment is available to use and what cost, or is that kind of
It's kind of as an as-needed basis.
Nothing's
The best-
published, it's just
Nothing's
like-
published. And again, typically we say no to a lot of this stuff.
Mhm.
The best example is the fire department. You know, we exchange a lot of, they'll borrow our tables, our chairs for their pancake breakfasts. That's probably the best example
Yeah.
about what we have.
Okay.
For the most part, but it also includes, like, if people were to rent our facilities, you know, what's here.
Yeah.
You know, if somebody comes in and rents and says, hey, can we borrow some tables and chairs, absolutely, we get
Yeah.
to them and things
Right.
like that too
Right.
as well. But the off-campus stuff typically is the fire department, the village, when we had the 100-year celebration,
food down
we
there.
sent over
Tables
Yeah.
and-
anything and everything, over there too as well, that we could possibly help with.
Okay. Okay.
So, yeah. All right, 8:40, again, public gifts and sponsorships. This is, basically is the donation part of our, you know, of the operations. It does funnel everything into the board yet. Again, whether it's $100, you know, $10,000, everything does get funneled into the board. Sponsorship, you know, anything that we want to do from a sponsorship standpoint, maybe all comes to the board through this, which is how we operate now anyway.
So would we ever actively seek a sponsorship?
Yeah, I mean, we did actively seek sponsorship when we did our remodel, you know, from a standpoint of is whether it be, hey, does anybody want to sponsor either any some equipment, did they want to sponsor the room, you know, for, you know, I think of, you know, kind of more of the high school settings where you're like, hey, all of a sudden, you know, our face room is
Provide a
sponsored
piece of
by.
equipment that wouldn't be installed, sponsored by whatever
Could be,
business or
yeah,
person.
yep,
Okay.
yep, or even a naming right to an area, could be too, so that is yet to happen, but
Yeah,
not to say that we haven't tried in some donation
Like the gym, the
capacity.
scoreboards,
The gym,
right.
scoreboards, things like that.
with all those families that are on the wall.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah, those would be the ones too.
Alright.
Yep.
And then how does this apply to PTO?
Same thing.
Donations, same process?
Same process, same process, yep.
Because it's a separate entity, it's everything they do.
Everything they do comes to the board,
Okay.
from a donation standpoint, correct. You got it. Yep.
Okay.
All right, sales and solicitations. Again, we are going to limit that. Again, but it has to be approved through district administrator. Again, that's the PTO examples, the MAA examples, coming through.
Okay.
So you're saying like the book fair,
Yep, same thing, yep.
and that is to be approved through you?
Yep, or Bill, actually, it's
Business manager.
business manager or appropriate, could be a building principal.
Okay.
Yep, as well. And very limited, again, has to be tied directly to us or the organization.
And then what about sales of goods that may break some of our policies?
Talk to me a little bit more about that.
Book sales, let's say there's certain books that wanna be sold that don't.
We pull those off. If they don't align with our policies, we pull those off.
I think that's something like that should be put in here. It needs to follow policy.
I think we've got it, where would that be? I think I saw, distribution, I think 852 is where we have from the distribution of materials to students. But I understand where that's not a distribution, that would be a sale,
That's a
from their
sale.
standpoint.
Yeah, so I think. we need to-
If I,
we get in there
if,
somewhere.
I'm gonna take a look at, I'm gonna pull up 852 right now. Troy, why don't you look at, and Justin, why don't you take a look at 852? There is,
Big
Merton
paragraph,
Sex
third
National
paragraph.
RNG, number 6. Or the third paragraph, actually, the third paragraph. Non-discrimination, educational programming. We could move that over. Yep, that's right, so that's where that is. I can put something in there from that.
I mean, or we just put in there, you know, any sales of goods or services will comply with.
Comply with all
policy-
district, all district policies.
And then as other policies change or adopt, it's all.
Then we don't need to change
It's already
anything.
encompassed in,
Yep. Okay. Comply with district policies. Okay. Perfect. All right, well then we'll stay on 852 then.
Alright, so no for-profit organization shall be allowed to distribute materials to students using district means, meaning they can't use staff and or.
Correct. Yep.
Photocopier or anything.
They can't distribute materials. So for instance, if a for-profit institution wanted to come in and supply materials to kids, that we can't do. The nonprofits, we allow, because again, once you allow one, you have to allow all. So the nonprofits would be MAA,
Sure.
PTO, 4-H. But if someone were to run an after-school club that was a for-profit, we wouldn't be allowed to solicit in our, kind of our family flyer information.
And, okay, none of those non-for-profit organizations can distribute materials on behalf of for-profit
Correct,
organizations.
correct. Yep, yep. And we do review that, for that. Now, I should pause
I mean,
for
'cause
that.
that-
I should
yeah,
pause
that-
that, I
that's a
should
little-
stop that.
that's a
So,
little
so for
ambiguous.
instance, PTO ran a math night.
Mhm.
That mathnasium came in and helped support. So that was a nonprofit working with a profit to support students. In the past, a fish, for instance, Saz's Just Smokin', when they bring a food truck on, that obviously is a for-profit that they're working in conjunction with a nonprofit to benefit, for a donation or a fundraiser for the school. So that would be
Yeah.
kind of that difference, whereas when one of those nonprofits partner with a business, to kind of.
So why do we wanna, I'm just generally asking, why do we wanna say no to for-profit organizations distributing things?
Well, what I would say
Without
is.
prior approval, obviously.
Without prior, right, exactly. Well, because again, once you say yes to a for-profit, you have to say all of them. And I guess from an open access standpoint, we kind of limited it to just nonprofit to keep it simple. When I say simple, because we do promote the PTO.
We're just
MAA.
forcing them through other means if they want to.
The
So they have to go through a nonprofit.
They have to go through.
Partner up.
They have to partner up, which then ultimately benefits the school for that too. So let's say somebody started up a nonprofit and all of a sudden is connected. Again, we have the ability to say yay or nay, but there has to be obviously sound judgment to say, hey,
Mhm.
the money is not coming back to the school district, and that's what we would say to, I don't know,
Yeah, I
again, a
get your point.
nonprofit,
Yep.
just to say, hey,
Yeah.
that's not a direct connection, that you're not going to be either supplying something or benefiting our students directly from that
Jordan, you're
standpoint.
talking.
So we would have to really kind of take a look at the situation, but many nonprofits do partner with a for-profit organization, then those just get funneled back to the school as part of a partnership.
Okay. So, an organization partners with one of the not-for-profits, and they put advertising on school grounds. Is that allowed?
If it says, and I'll give you an example, when PTO used Mathnasium wanted to put up just Mathnasium posters. That just said, Mathnasium, math night, you know, tonight
Yeah.
or this week, look for information. We pulled those. I said, I'm very sorry, you cannot promote a for-profit on our school grounds. I said the difference would be is if it was PTO math night sponsored by Mathnasium or in support of Mathnasium that we've supported in the past.
Okay.
So, but again, there has to be some connection to the nonprofit in the advertising, not just handing out
Got it.
Mathnasium.
So that would apply if MAA was hosting a tournament, right, just on school grounds, and they had a vendor come in that was distributing, you know, a lot of times people will buy t-shirts, whatever, but they'll also be passing on flyers for other things. Would that apply in the same scenario?
Yes, it would.
It's school grounds.
It's school grounds, yep, it is school grounds. It's after school hours and not distributing to students. So what I would say is I'd probably work with MAA, they'd say, hey, somebody's gonna be up there
Okay,
advertising.
so it's limited to during school hours,
During
through
school hours, through school hours.
direct to a student?
Correct,
Okay,
yeah.
fair enough.
Yeah,
I just want to be overly like,
yeah, that's,
Does it
it's,
say that during school hours?
it doesn't directly that I
Yeah.
see.
I didn't see it.
I mean, it's implied, right, 2 students.
because when you're outside of school, again, it's on school ground.
I just don't want it to be overly strict so that
Yep.
a good opportunity
know.
for,
For a nonprofit, yep.
right, for a nonprofit.
Yeah, that's
to-
absolutely. During school hours, let's see, we talk about it, curricular, extracurricular, people services, recreation, classifications. Let me dig into that, that's a really good question. I'll try to put that in there somewhere.
Okay.
I'll highlight that, put that in as a question to say during school-sponsored activities, and during the day. Let me see what I can do with that, I understand what you guys are saying, absolutely.
Yeah, understand the policy, just don't want it to be so restrictive that it makes it for people who don't want to,
Yeah,
right,
do anything.
do anything.
Yeah,
Okay.
good point. All right, 860, visitors to school. And just, this will be replacing. Going through that, we have background checks and we have the ability to say yay or nay.
All right, board member visits. Board members are required to arrange visits to the schools in advance. Why?
We already have a policy, 521, employee communication and lines of responsibility, where this gets tied into about the notification of when a board member is going to be speaking or working or visiting, already there. Again, just kind of for that communication lines about what it is that, and again, it's kind of, to your point, Justin, as a parent, if it's a parent, you follow the parent process. If it's an official capacity as a board member, there's a different process for that, just to kind of make sure that they're delineated.
So a board member can't come to inspect or watch what's going on?
Now, unless it's board directed,
So I can't come just walk around the hallways and watch?
Pop in,
Pop in?
Pop
and
in.
watch- Pop in and watch the
that would
neighbors?
be a board visit. Yep.
Now, doesn't that conflict with state statute? Section 120, duty to supervise schools? It doesn't say we have to get approval to do that. And look, reality
double
is,
check.
Ron, we go through you for every time we
That's
come in the
that's just
building,
the
but
procedure.
when you
Yep.
put a policy in place like this, like it,
Yeah, I don't know any other schools that board members
People
can
would-
come and go as they want.
people would,
This is probably one of the only schools where board members don't have a key to actually get in.
a badge, you mean?
The badge that during school hours, to be able to enter the building too.
So that's my own.
We can take it off, I mean, we can certainly, if that's the
Well,
will of the board.
I just feel the board members should be able to. come to this
Maybe
meeting.
put it is recommended, or it is, I don't know, you know, we're elected to make sure that we have access to the schools, and, right, that's the purpose of our role, right? Because theoretically, you could restrict that access, in theory, per this policy.
Well, the way it reads, to Troy's point, yes, advanced, it says advanced notice
Right.
are required. Instead of required, do we wanna say suggested, recommended, take it out?
I take it out.
So, all right, just, I say, hey, Ron, I'm gonna come in, I wanna do X, Y, and Z, I'm gonna go tour with Jordan, right?
Yep.
You don't get back to me, right, which has never happened, but you don't
Yeah.
get back to me.
Yep,
Is this saying I can't do that until you give me approval? Or I arrange it in advance?
it would be arranged in advance.
I don't need your approval, it just needs to be arranged in advance.
This policy would stay arranged in advance through the district administrator.
Yeah, so.
But it doesn't say I need your approval, I just need to contact you, I need to say, Ron, I'm gonna
Correct.
tour with Jordan
In the future.
on Wednesday at 9 AM.
Correct. Yep,
So that's the way that you see this, is it's not getting your approval to do so.
I cannot restrict your access to school. This is prior approval coming in. When I say prior notification, I mean, probably approval. Is there even-
Doesn't say
It doesn't
approval
say
here.
approval. Nope.
Just says arranged. So to me, it's just, I mean, slightly meaningless, right? We're just giving you the heads up that we're.
You're giving me a heads up, well, that's, your other policy, 521, has that in there, that if a board member is going to be speaking to Jordan, for instance,
Mhm.
notification has to be given.
But if a board member just wants to come observe, not speak to anybody,
Yep.
just like walk the hallways,
Mhm.
see what's going on, walk through the lunchroom, walk out through recess.
The pop-in visit through this policy would be prohibited, in fact,
Exactly.
the wording of this would be prohibited,
Yeah,
the pop-in visit.
so I think any board member should be.
Yeah, so what's the purpose of limiting that ability of a board member to do that? What's the advantage to the district?
I wouldn't say there's an advantage to the district, it's just notifying the district administrator that a board member is gonna be on campus. We can take it out, there's no,
I'll take it out.
okay,
I mean, it's not like you've seen the last few years. a lot
in
of
13
popping,
years, nobody's
popping,
popped,
tons
no.
of- I mean, I know I've popped in.
No, but, and anyone, if you just said, if,
I come
again,
in
I
the
can
office
understand, if you said, if you showed up today and said, Ron, I'd like to go through the
I'm gonna
school, walk through the school, then go ahead.
Yeah, whatever.
You're a visitor,
Yeah.
you have an official
Well-
capacity, you have an official.
Yeah, I met
so we
with the
can take it out.
administrator last week.
Yep,
I didn't know that, whether or not you were aware of that or not.
the,
When I
Mr.
met
Blessington
Bob,
let me know, yep. And you told me too, by the way,
Did
you
I?
said you were gonna be on campus.
Oh, that's
about
right,
the
'cause we were-
finance
we were-
meeting.
we were
Yep,
popping
yep,
off.
You told me
Okay.
to, yep.
But, so in that scenario, right, if a principal says, hey, can we come talk about something, I would have to, if we keep this as is, I would have to notify you that, hey, I'm coming into the school to speak with so-and-so.
Correct, well, you already have, the individual employee needs to notify me that you are talking to
That's a
them.
policy.
Right, but that's
Correct,
a different.
That's
that would be
policy
a
500.
meeting, this is a
addressing-
visit.
Yeah.
Correct.
So yeah, I'd take that.
I'll just take
So,
it out.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay. Public complaints, last one. All right, 70s.
Yeah, that's one for 800s.
Yep, for the 800s. Yep. So pretty much the same process as we've had before in the past is obviously you work with the person who is the concern with. If that doesn't work, then it gets escalated all the way up. And then ultimately, the board is the final decision maker.
Does it say the board, or does it say the board president?
Should be the board. Let's see, where's my glasses?
Yeah, it
Board
does say
shall
the board.
base its decision on
Board.
it.
Yep.
Observes the
Mhm.
rights.
The board.
Okay. Which is the way it should be. Nothing should
Correct,
be-
yeah, yeah.
Nothing should be the power of one individual board member.
Our policies are open to the entire board to decide.
Not previously.
The board president got involved in
Yeah.
to make determinations whether or
It
not.
got to the board.
It got to the board.
This takes that out.
This takes it out. Well, it takes it out. There is still, and the other difference in this policy is our old policy had timelines in it. This one does not. This one does not.
But a individual board member, in this case, the board president, could not stop an appeal getting to the board.
Not
Like
if
in the,
it's.
like in the old policy.
Correct, but the old policy, I think, was more restricted with
Yeah, yeah,
timing
timelines, yeah,
or whatever
yeah,
it might be too as well, so. yeah.
So are there any forms?
No, we do not
Okay.
have a form, it's just you need to notify. It's
Okay,
just
so
in
there's,
writing.
in writing. Okay, so
Yep,
there's no
in
set
writing.
form.
Yep, don't have a form. Now, do you want us to put a form? We can put a form in there if you would like it and make an exhibit, if you wanna have them follow, form to fill out, or it just says, hey, I'm filing a complaint against so-and-so, here's the information, why.
I mean,
Yeah, I don't think we need a form if it's.
As long as
there's
it's
no
in
time.
writing through.
It's in writing through me.
Yep.
There's a process to go through it, so. All right, well, I will make those adjustments and, cross-references accounts, we can certainly get that done. All right, thank you. By the way, that is the last series. So we've made it through.
Good job.
So, all right, so let's talk about 341. All right, so 341 is our new district reading, Act 20. You'll see, here's our new one in place, here's our old one. Send that one to there. Just I got a copy for you too. Very short. And here's, if you want a paper copy there too as well. So, this is a WASB policy. I did have Maria work through this, since this was kind of her area of expertise. Basically highlights that we are now going to follow Act 20, which is we're going to be setting reading programs or reading plans, I should say. We've got our goals, annual evaluations, state mandated reading assessments. They are still working through some of these ideas here at the state. There is a lawsuit into the funding of this too as well. But this would align with Act 20. When I say the lawsuit is not about whether or not this is going to go into play. It's about the funding of it as well. They did already highlight a literacy screener, which is Ames Web Plus. So that is something that we've already used in the past. We're going to be taking a look at how we're going to be implementing that. In the previous 2 years, we've been using iReady. Now they're going to make us, from a K-3 standpoint, use Ames Web. So whether they're making us or whether we have to, we're still, that's kind of in some of that legal interpretation, whether we have to specifically follow
That or a
that
program.
or a program.
Yeah.
Exactly, so.
Would that change what we do with iReady in
Nope.
other areas?
Nope,
Okay,
not that
so-
we're anticipating, not at all.
Okay. So, just, this is not related to policy as much as what, because there is a lot of, in Act 20 about kids that are behind the
Correct.
curve, getting them
Caught up.
caught up.
Yep.
What percentage of our student population do we anticipate being in that category? Because that's where the resources really need to be focused, correct? For Act 20?
Per Act 20,
Yeah.
the difference in Act 20 is now there needs to be a specific plan
Per student.
per student.
Correct. So what percentage of our students?
Right now, I would say probably right around 25%.
25%?
25%.
Okay. So it's a pretty heavy lift.
This is a heavy lift. This is a
That's
heavy
K
lift.
through 8.
K through.
No, K through three, K through three. Now, the state did delay the start of the reading plans until January, just to kind of give schools time to be able to do this. We feel we've got a plan, and again, Maria and her team will continue to work through that, to get that. But it is gonna be a heavy lift to have, figured, if it's 20 times, 120%, you're talking about 80 kids, 80
80
plans,
kids.
80 plans. Hopefully, again, through some universal screening, that includes special education, and obviously
Right.
there's some
Yep.
things that you work through IEPs and
Yep.
stuff like that too, so.
Right.
But,
And I'm sure, of course, we've already got specifics on most of these students.
Correct,
right?
yeah, there
Not
isn't
we're
gonna
starting-
be
not
any
like we're starting from
surprise.
scratch, we're.
no, this
very-
isn't a surprise for us because of our universal screeners already.
Yeah.
We would, and that's where, Justin, to your answer, would be about 25%, but what we would be anticipating.
Okay. All right.
All right?
And then, is this related to anyone who's responsible for these plans, or is that just you?
It would be
Just
highlighted through me.
District administrator for everything?
With working with other
Other administrators.
administrators and appropriate instructional staff.
But I'm assuming we have to submit something to the state, it says must we meet the timing parameters found in state law.
I don't want to answer that question because I
All
don't have
districts
the answer
selected
to that.
dates for the administration of reading readiness assessments must meet the timing found in state law,
Mhm.
so.
Because there's a time frame that everything has to
Have
be
it done by.
completed. Justin, to be honest with you, I'm not sure what the auditing of this is going to be, whether it's,
So we don't have to turn the plans in to the state, we just have to have them on file if they come to get audited?
if we get audited, exactly. You may be on a 3-year audit, or it could
So
be
you
a
have to pull
popular,
files.
pull the files.
Available when they request it.
Yep, exactly. This upcoming year, we're having a special education audit. I'm assuming it would be something similar to that, where they come in and say, I want to see these 6 IEPs, boom, 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 and then they evaluate
Just
them.
randomly pull those.
Yep, randomly pulled.
Just given some of MPS's recent stuff in the news, deadlines are
Deadlines are big.
gonna be more, I think,
Deadline.
more focus,
Yeah.
due to legislators, so.
Yep, I would agree.
And then we have, how many licensed reading specialists?
We have 1, 2, 3, 4, we have multiple in each building.
Okay, so we're not.
We're fine with that, yes, we are fine.
Okay.
You got it. And a reading specialist also can be a special educator too. Those licenses go hand in hand.
Yeah, or
So,
other administrator, it says too. So
Correct.
administrator can hold that.
administrator can hold that license
Okay,
as well.
very good.
You got it.
All right.
All right. Okay. All right, let's take a peek at 363, educational, I have those. Can you hand those out?
Yep, we got it, yeah, we got it.
Oh, okay, all right, got it,
Yeah.
yep. Great, so, at the first reading of the board, it was brought up to, Justin, to create a database.
Mm-hmm.
So if I understood you correctly, your request is they had to submit it ahead of showing, even though it wasn't needing administrative approval. So same process.
Yep.
But now,
Yep.
yep,
And I'll give you an example, right? As I thought through this. If it's in a database, right, we're tracking it, and there's one that we've already said no to because something came up, or Maria said, hey, this doesn't really fit with what we want to do. That database exists, right? And I'm sure somehow it can be with Jim's technological ability that, hey, that link has been not allowed, right? YouTube link or whatever has been not allowed. But I just want it to be so that there's a database so that we can, like I told you, evaluate, the administration can evaluate how much off curriculum stuff are we using and why. If so, if it's all of second grade or third grade that's saying, hey, yeah, this would be a great video, just add it to our general curriculum. But if we ever have an issue or concern, the administration can then review things that have been submitted, and it's just a little bit of, hey, we know what's being used in our. But I would assume we'd have the same thing like we do for books in the classroom, right? We have some type of
No,
database.
instructional materials, and that's where this policy then aligns with supplemental materials. Currently, if a teacher wants to bring a supplemental material in, they are solely responsible for that. We don't have a database, they don't submit it, it is up to their discretion. What this new policy, or what the change to this policy would be is moving that to identical to a supplemental material. The goal of this policy was, as we heard, this is also a trust issue. When I say a trust issue, this is one of the things that I've heard, and I think the board has heard too, is you don't even trust us to show a video without prior approval. So truly what we were trying to do is align our supplemental material, so if it's not core related, if the district didn't give it to you, it is your discretion, you need to review it thoroughly, and we trust you as a professional to show that to kids. If you have a concern or you want it approved, our policy still allows you to say, hey, Steve, Bob, Maria, can you please take a look at this? So the intent of this was to give the professional trust back to the educator without the approval from the video standpoint. Because if we're going to be honest with you, Justin, what I would say is if we want to continue to create that database, then we might as well keep approving it and keep the policy as is.
Why? I mean, the database is just so we know what's being utilized in our classroom. There's no restrictor at all.
So as far as
For the teacher.
I don't have an issue, I mean, we've discussed this.
Yeah.
Creating a database, I don't have an issue with that. I have an issue right now, because we're trying to give a little bit of extra trust back, turning it in prior to using it. But if we ask the teachers to keep a list of what they have used, and they create a database on their own, and it's open for us to look at, for you to request it on a monthly or quarterly basis, and so it's there. As long as there's some sort of database, some sort of record of what has been used in that class, but without prior approval.
So they always would have to do that, to say, hey, what video, we heard that you showed a video on, blah, blah, blah. Can you please show us that, or what was it? They need to turn that over. And I think, Troy, what you're asking for is.
I'm just asking for them to keep a law, keep a
For them to
database.
keep it, so if it was required,
if
if it
all of a
was
sudden something comes
requested,
up,
boom, it would be.
you go walk in there, let me see your
It's
database for the last 3 months.
You know, we were almost in alignment. It's
Yeah.
just, I'm saying just have it, just one centralized point for the entire district. They just, it's real simply go on and you enter the link, right, through a Google
And that's what they
form.
currently do now.
Yeah, but there does not need to be approved by anybody prior to them showing it. They just need to make sure it's.
Yeah, just as long as
It's collected, that
it's
we
collected.
know.
Correct. You're asking for a Google form ahead of time.
No, but
Troy,
now,
what
but
you're saying is.
yeah, exactly, we
You're-
agree
you're-
now.
You two are changing, okay, so.
I mean, if we're not gonna approve a process, right, whether they do it before or after or whatever, to me, if I'm gonna show something, right, I'm just gonna submit it and say, I'm gonna be using this in my classroom this year at some point. Right?
They certainly can.
Right, I'm assuming they plan more than an hour in advance of
Gotcha.
when to show
So-
a video, right?
And-
So,
and to
it
be
shouldn't
honest with
be,
you,
it shouldn't be a trust issue, it shouldn't be an onerous task to just submit a quick link, and then we just have a database saying, yep, here's everything that was used, right? It's a simple grade, right, name.
We already have it. We already have the form.
Yeah, okay.
Because
So we do that, so
So we would just take out the
The
beforehand,
administrative
administrative approval, or they have to turn this in prior to using or showing that video.
Well, would you like them to do it, so submit it ahead of showing it?
No, I don't think they.
I mean,
Or after.
I'm, whatever, I don't,
I'd say, it's after, I'm fine with after, as long as it's there.
Just to say, so if
Yeah,
you
because
show
if
the
we do
video.
it, if we do it prior, then there's no reason to even change this.
Correct.
Correct. What we're trying to do is
Well-
show a little.
but the current procedure, once they submit that, they need to get a response back saying, yes, it's
Correct.
okay.
It does.
So we take that out, saying you don't need it. We trust you that what you're using follows the school's policies, right? We just want to know what's being, I just look at it from a coaching and training standpoint as well, the teacher. If you find out that we're using an excessive amount, 'cause I think that's your concern, and Maria's concern is that we're using too much supplement.
We're trying to really hone down into,
Yeah.
is that video really, it really needed? Correct.
Correct, regardless of appropriateness, right? It might be the most appropriate thing, but you're doing it
You
a
can
lot.
get 5 minutes out of it, they're showing an hour video, and they
Well,
only
and
get
that's what
5
we're trying
minutes
to
of
do
it.
is really, and now we're giving it to them to say, hey, and actually in our current, in our rework, we did add, if it's more than a period, it needs to be approved,
No matter what.
no matter what, and that's something we added in response to, hey, we're gonna allow you to do whatever it is you wanna do, but if it's over 45 minutes, we need to know about it. That needs approval, because that, Troy, to your point, that's excessive, what we would say.
And I guess that's what I'm getting at is yes, all the age appropriate things and all the aligns with curriculum and all that stuff.
Yep.
To me, those two things are together, right? Whether it's too long, right, or appropriate, it's still educationally, we wanna make sure administration can say, hey, this does not provide the value we're expecting in our classrooms
Mhm.
for our students. So that's why I want a database. And also, again, it's because if we have staff that say, hey, we really want this resource, what better way than a lot of people submitting it saying, I'm using this in my classroom, to make that adjustment.
So to summarize, what I'm hearing is they just need to submit, so all videos need to be submitted, not approved, they don't need approval, like it was, but it needs to be submitted within 24 hours of showing it, after the fact, or?
I mean, if I was you, if I'm in your seat, I would want it in the system, right, prior to potentially something coming up, a complaint or something like that.
Well, we're not gonna be keeping an eye on this.
So
we
basically,
can't-
if you get a complaint, you're gonna be able to pull that database up and look at it.
Well, if we get a complaint about it,
It's gonna be after the fact anyway.
it's gonna be after the fact, because now we're not previewing anything. We aren't.
Yep.
And, and this was one of the safeguards, and again, I was in support of the policy, and I'm
Yeah, you're a
indifferent.
fan.
I am a fan of it, because it does keep us out of trouble. But we're gonna be giving some professional courtesy, and trust back to our staff to say, hey, use it. If you feel it's appropriate, it's been reviewed, you feel it meets the educational values. The difference now is you still need to submit it. And I understand that. The question is does it need to be submitted before the fact or after the fact?
I'd say within 24 hours of using it.
I mean, again, I don't know a scenario, why wouldn't they submit it beforehand? If you've reviewed it and you've planned out your classroom lesson, I mean, again, not being a teacher.
Again, one of the pieces that we were trying to avoid is I saw something last night, and I'm gonna show that tomorrow. They would need to remember to go into, oh, this is great, I'm gonna go into my Google form, I'm gonna submit it, ready to go for tomorrow's lesson. That's kind of that trust factor that we're trying to give back to them. This little tweak would say, Troy, and I would say, hey, if you show a video, please within the next 24 hours, fill this form out. Just so there's an official record of it. I mean, I think that gives. Now, the tracking of that is only going to occur, to be honest with you, because we don't know when said teacher shows a video. We won't. We'll know, I mean, we're not
Yeah,
gonna
but
get notification of
because
it, it's just gonna be a
But
database.
because it's a database, if quarterly,
We pull
or
it up.
when you're doing
Oh, correct, yeah,
Yeah.
we can
doing an
certainly-
evaluation for a teacher, you can just say, all right,
Pull your database up.
pull a database and
Well,
just.
we would pull it now.
Correct.
We would pull
Yeah,
that
Show
database
us
stuff
all the
Yeah.
videos
And
that
I
were
just
showed
think-
by this
I think
teacher
if
in
we're
this classroom.
implementing this, I think we do it in the first quarter, just to see how things are going. You pull everybody's.
Yeah, and I don't, again,
Yeah, I mean-
not meant to restrict, not
No,
meant to.
Just to see.
It's just that we have, so yeah, I mean, so we have a review process for library books, but we don't have any review process for books in classrooms, like we would with this.
Correct.
That's,
Yep.
Yeah, I thought we did.
Well, for core materials, again, but if a teacher brings in a supplemental book, now, we supply classroom libraries, we do that. Some teachers bring in books. They do, they need to fit the definitions of our policies. If they don't, obviously, we've got some,
Yeah.
employee conducts,
Yeah.
discipline, mandated discipline as it relates to that. And that's one of the reasons now I would say we built those classroom libraries up, we're gonna continue to supply those per Act 20 basically, and continue to do that.
So that's
But
a boilerplate, every second grade teacher gets this.
that's what we wanna do, correct, yep, correct, yep,
So any additional resources they bring in, parents donate books through whatever.
yep, whatever it is, that would be at the discretion of the teacher, but still has to meet the definition of our policy. So if something would get challenged, you'd be like, this doesn't meet this policy, then discipline would be invoked.
And we've never done an audit of books. No one's ever gone through.
I wouldn't say that, but again, we believe that, again, I would expect that all of our books in our classrooms follow that procedure. Libraries are different than classrooms.
Yep.
They have different rules. They truly do. Yep, they truly do. All right, well, I will create that wording and put that in there. Certainly can. All right. The big one. Okay, so
So we're not doing
this,
anything with front lesson, right?
oh, I thought we already.
That was-
Oh, that's the old policy.
That's the
That's
old
the old
policy,
policy.
yeah,
Yeah, that's the old
what I thought.
policy.
Good.
Eight something.
Yep.
Yep, okay, so, all right, let's talk about 113, the new possible non-discrimination
Okay.
policy.
Can I just ask some questions prior
I'm
to?
gonna start by saying I don't have all the answers.
Okay.
Okay, that's what I'm gonna start by
Yeah,
saying.
and I think it's important to address for anyone that's
Yep.
listening. This is a moving target with an implementation date that I think is ridiculous and impossible to meet. We are given, there's a lack of information, a lack of clarity, there's a lack of legal clarity on a lot of these things.
Yep,
It's rushed, it's forced, it's pushed, it takes away people's ability to make personal and private decisions at times. So it puts the board in a situation of asking us to just rubber stamp something that
Yep.
is legally unsettled.
correct.
That's my view on
That,
it.
and
So-
that is 100%. What I did share with you is obviously there is, first of all, Wisconsin is not part of, Wisconsin as a state has not gotten the injunction like 15 other states have. However, there was a Kansas ruling, and this is what I shared with both of you. And this information is from WASB, basically stating that the Moms for Liberty, and then there's, I think, Young Americans or Young Athletes, were granted an injunction. And what this is important for the Merton Community School District is about is, first of all, it doesn't stop the board from adopting the new Title IX regulations. What this does is first of all, the Moms for Liberty ruling, if Merton Primary School or Merton Intermediate, or both, are on that list, which has to be submitted today, I do believe, to the judge, all the schools, this is individual schools. So if Merton Primary is on the list and Merton Intermediate is not, there are two different rules then that would be possibly in play. And that's important for one thing, and I'll come up here in a little bit. And we won't know who's on that list until I don't know. I don't know when that published list is going to happen. The good point of this is we're gonna continue to get legal guidance as, the Kansas ruling continues to come up, is really the biggest one that's affecting Wisconsin right now. By federal law, technically, we have until August 1st. Right now, it's July 15th. So we do have some time to really put this into play and to wait a little bit if we have to. What I would recommend to the board is that we move forward with the committee reading. But what I would recommend is, first of all, is for us to change and to have two possible policies ready to go. So instead of replacing our current policy, which follows current Title IX policy, which is 113, I'm recommending to the board that, first of all, we keep current policy 113 for right now, and we start to develop, let's just call it 114, policy 114, which would be the new Title IX regulations, so that we're ready to go if in fact we have to. Either way, because when the Moms for Liberty comes out, maybe one of our schools is and one of our schools isn't on that list. Again, I'm not quite sure how you do that. I know they've been soliciting members, which ultimately, if you are a parent, I do believe in the district, and you are a part of it now, all of a sudden that school does not have to enact the new Title IX regulations, and the US Department cannot go after you for not implementing the new policy. Now, WASB in their final bullet point, again, this is where some more guidance comes up is, you know, what is the Seventh Circuit Court ruling on sexual discrimination and how that plays into all of this. So, Justin, I don't disagree that this is very rushed. We continue, even as school administrators, to learn more about this, let alone school boards, to understand what it is that we continue to try to navigate.
Yeah, I mean, and I'll just relate it to our educational policy, right? We're talking about trust and everything, but this policy, or this rule, is, it literally puts people into a situation where, whether or not what you believe in whatever, people can get disciplined as a result of
Can get disciplined.
teachers,
Correct.
So whatever,
students.
if a teacher misgenders a student,
Correct.
What-
Well,
what's the
if it's an
discipline?
accident, if it, again, if the student files a complaint, we then go through the complaint procedure before we even would enact discipline. I can't highlight what the discipline's going to be, because you have to work through the process to even get to the discipline. But Troy, that's a,
Saying
again, if it's
or
an
a student,
accident,
or a
student to student, what Title IX would say is, when, as you're working through investigations, again, we have not had our investigative training yet, we haven't. I went through the coordinator training, which ultimately highlights everything that you're gonna see in the policies. But if a student refuses to acknowledge another student's identity or pronoun, and they continue to refuse it. If it's an accident, again, if that student files a complaint, we work through the procedure. Was it an accident? Put supportive measures in. If it's intentional, Troy, to your point, if a teacher really truly believes that, no, you are and their, whatever their personal beliefs are, I'm going to, you know, you were, in Skyward it says this. I'm not going to follow that. It does put them into risk of discipline. It certainly does.
And then what about the other side of the situation where, you know, we have a student that is in Skyward as a female and chooses to use the boys' bathroom. And a student is uncomfortable with that, and parents file a complaint.
Yep. Again, then we follow the complaint process. Because the Seventh Circuit Court ruling says a student may use the bathroom facility that they identify with. That is what the law we have
Does
to.
that apply to staff as well?
Staff, I do believe so too. I do believe.
General members of the public?
No, we do not have a general members of the public. But, again, I'd have to look into if in fact after school at a basketball game, which is a school-sponsored event, what about adults?
What
About
about adults
visitors?
where we have-
I'm just gonna say
We have no
visitors.
visitor process after school
Correct.
hours during school-sponsored events, right? It's
Yep.
open to anyone. Again, this is where the difficulty becomes, for me, is that this is infringing on people's, you know, we talk about the challenges of the teaching profession, right? The teacher makes whether it's a mistake or whether it's their belief, that's a difficult situation to be in,
Yeah.
and it's confusing for students,
very confusing.
especially the rules. So my question is, what if we do nothing?
What if we do nothing?
Just keep our current.
If you keep your current policy,
I mean, what's ramifications?
ramifications are we are risking a possible federal lawsuit. Again, keep all of this stuff.
Cause this
It's hard not
injunction is gonna have a decision made. They're gonna decide on
Correct.
this, we just
Yep.
don't know when.
Yeah.
Correct. Troy, let's just
That'll
say,
be settled
we're
at some
not
point.
on, we're not on the Moms for Liberty list. Both of our schools
Okay.
are not on there. First of all, that question gets asked every training, every webinar, seminar, is what happens if we do nothing? The district it could be found liable, and again, it opens it up for a federal lawsuit against the district.
Okay.
Again, discrimination, that the district is just opening up a big can of, I don't wanna say a can of worms, but the opportunity to be sued for non-compliance. And as one attorney
Well,
said.
federal statutes, overrule any school policy.
You got it.
So if we do nothing, a federal statute.
The rule's still in place.
The rule's still in place.
Well, the federal statute says the board shall adopt a policy that aligns with the new Title IX regulations.
So, I feel we should just table this right now until we see what's gonna happen with this.
I'm gonna recommend that we move forward in case this doesn't go through. So we're ready to go. That would be my recommendation. Is that, again, just making it through the committee to say, hey, we have a policy if we need to. And
So right
I
now,
don't want to.
we have no 114 right now.
my recommendation would be to make a 114. So that means we keep our current policy 113 and just make a whole separate policy. Because what I know what some districts are doing is running them simultaneously until the rulings come in. So if the ruling comes in and says, hey, Merton primary, Merton intermediate do not need to follow the new, then we
Stay with one.
stay with 113. The one piece that the board can decide to do is what I would recommend is still have our meeting, have 114, again, change the numbers, 114 and 114R, go to first read. The board, again, okay, thank you very much. You've given it to us. We are working through our policy. If by the 22nd, when it's scheduled to be final approval, if this is not sorted out, we set another meeting, say January 29th, 30th, or 31st. We set a special meeting where then the board, if all of a sudden something says that, oh, Wisconsin or Merton primary, Merton intermediate do not need to, then we don't even have the meeting. But you set a time for the board just in case we have to. That would be my recommendation right now, is let's work through our procedures and our policies, get 114, again, I'd like to renumber it, 114 and 114R through committee for a first read where the board just says,
On the
okay.
17th?
On the 17th, that's already scheduled. And then, if we don't know anything by the 22nd, we set another meeting later before August 1st, just in case.
Okay, so 106.10 in this new Title IX, or this new rule, we're looking at
The federal statute.
the federal statute.
Yep.
Discrimination on the basis of sex includes discrimination on the basis of sex stereotypes, sex characteristics, pregnancy or related conditions, sexual orientation, and gender identity.
Yep.
So, if I'm understanding that correctly, if let's use your example in Skyward, if they are a male, right, but they're identifying as a female, they can play on a girls' sports team here at Merton School based on the current rule that's
That's being proposed?
being proposed.
Yes. Now, I'm gonna pause that, they're gonna say you have to go back to what WIA said. Now, we don't follow WIA rules, but
That's what we're not
WIA has not specified yet that
But we're not
that
part of
experience.
WIA.
We're not part of WIA.
And how does WIA, or how are they gonna get an exemption? They're
WIA,
not.
again, what throughout our legal seminars, when the question comes up about athletics, the attorneys are referring back to whatever WIA decides. WIA is still working through this as well. In particular, Justin, to your point is if a high school is not on that Moms for Liberty list right now, then in theory, yes. A female can play on a male if they identify as such, and vice versa. So WIA is still working through that too as well.
Yeah, but in our case, WIA is irrelevant, right? WIA is
We do
nothing to
not
do
follow
with-
WIA
Okay,
rules,
so
but
we're-
I would say is we would probably go with their guidance, even though we can decide what we would like to do.
And that would apply to locker room usage.
You got it, everything. Now, we work with families the best that we can before we even get to this.
100%,
yeah.
100%.
Yep, because we want to avoid a complaint, we certainly do, and, again, our families have been wonderful to work with, because they just want what's best for their child too as well. So, but Justin, to your question, we still, underneath the new Title IX guidelines and according to the Seventh Circuit Court, yes, they can.
Yeah, but according to this, again, I'm just want
The definition of sex
Clarity.
has changed.
clarity fully, if a Skyward student is male, but is identified as a female, and they want to participate on a girls' athletics team, right? Change in a locker room, and a student that is a female in Skyward is uncomfortable with that, it does not matter.
No,
Per this
they can
rule.
file a complaint, they can file a complaint as well.
Against who? The district?
They would file a complaint that they.
Yeah, but the way this is written,
We would
they're
work
not, it's
through-
not gonna stand up.
We would work, correct.
You're
The
not gonna-
Seventh Circuit Court says, but again, then you start to talk about supportive measures, you work through your process. Again, there's more unknowns than there are clarity around this, and Justin, like you started off with, this is rushed, we just got this, we literally just got this. Troy and Nicole, even as from the policy committee, and again, I've shared it with the board as soon as I got it. So that's why it's
So basically, we
difficult.
keep 113 and this would be 114.
Nope,
That's
that'd
the
be
rule.
114. That
Oh,
would be
that- oh, this
114
one's-
too.
this
Yep,
one's
both of
114.
them changed to
Okay,
114.
114 now.
Yep,
Alright, so you just are asking us to be prepared with,
Prepared to see
Options.
what comes out with this.
if that gets settled prior.
Correct.
So I mean, again, if this injunction gets
So basically,
overruled, we have no choice.
I am recommending that we're prepared for that injunction to get overruled. We are ready to go August 1st, so we are in compliance with federal law, correct. I need to recommend that to us.
Yeah.
so basically Wednesday's meeting is basically, it's gonna be more informative.
Correct.
To what you
It's a
just
first
said
read.
here.
It's a first read.
Have
You
other
got it.
board members contacted you in regards to this policy?
No, no other board members have. Yes, no, Mr. Dobberton has talked to me too as well.
Okay.
Yep. And I'm sure he will,
Cause this is a lot, if that's their first time absorbing this on Wednesday when we go through this, it's a lot to,
correct, and that's why, again, as
It's a
soon
lot.
as I got it, I shared it with you guys, and there's a lot to process. But I've heard from one other board member, it would be Dean, has commented about this as well. And he's not happy, I'll just say he's not happy, and he will highlight that, I'm sure.
yeah.
As in the meeting, but again, I'm just recommending we move forward with it. I don't have,
The district hasn't published anything
I mean, the community
about this.
majority of the community have done. Probably doesn't have-
no, it is part of our, it is linked in our policy committee agenda. And it's online, and then ultimately, when the board packet